When the Power Rangers started, they set a style that has continued for 30 years with some changes. Several of the things that haven't changed are that they still wear spandex suits, quick movements every time they go to speak, and being a series aimed at a younger audience, they must be a little more careful with the story that the series carries. As many already know, the first Power Rangers movie from 1995 is not canon, which means that it is not part of the history or timeline of the series. In simpler words, it means that the movie has nothing to do with the TV series. This is why the production of the movie was able to make several changes to make it a little different from the series and to make it stand out in other ways. Because of the flexibility that the producers of the movie had, there are things that they were able to do better than the series and that the fans liked more. Even so, there are also things that make the series better. We must remember that the comparison can only be made with the Mighty Morphin seasons, since the movie is also from that era and the Mighty Morphin. We must start with the costumes, since this is one of the most iconic things of the series and has continued to be repeated in all seasons. In the series, we can see that the suits are made of spandex, a fabric attached to the body that gives freedom to the Ranger to move better. The problem that Power Rangers has always had is that these suits have always looked of very poor quality. The suits are simple and make the Ranger look very weak. If we compare this with other superheroes, we will realize that their suits seem to be made of a more resistant material. In the 90s, this was very common, since at that time this was something innovative, but nowadays this is unacceptable. In the 1995 movie we could see that this changed, even though it was made in the same era of the series. Although the helmets did not change, the suits were different. They had extra protection and a design that made the Rangers look stronger and more powerful. One thing I really liked was the addition of the power coin on the chest of each Ranger, and another small change in the movie was that the helmets could change and had another function. We could see that the Yellow Ranger's helmet had a power beam and the Red Ranger's helmet had a power scope. This gave the helmets an additional use besides being for protection. The costumes were a plus for the movie, but not everything was good because they also made several mistakes. One of these mistakes was to create the Zords entirely in CGI, and although this could have been good, it really wasn't, as it looked very bad. At that time, there were movies that used the power of CGI and they looked so good that they still look good today. Unfortunately, those Zord special effects were terrible and looked very shiny. Worst of all, the design of all the Zords were very good, but the lighting, textures and animation were very bad. Today's CGI is used for the Zords, but the Megazords still look like they did in the beginning of the series, a person dressed as a Megazord in a miniature city to give the effect of giant size. Despite being a very old effect, it still works very well as it gives a more natural movement to the Megazord. We all know that with today's technology it is possible to make an excellent CGI Megazord, but for that they need a very big budget. We could see the lack of budget in the special episode because there we were presented with a Megazord created entirely in CGI, and although the design was excellent, the animation was terrible. However, in the 2017 movie we also had a Megazord created with CGI, and because they had a fairly high budget, they were able to create a perfect Megazord. A big change in the movie was the origin of the ninja power, since in the series it is very different and that story includes ninja, which also does not appear in the movie. In the series, the Power Rangers went in search of Ninja who helps them obtain the ninja power, a basic story with little action. In the movie, the Rangers had to travel to another planet in search of the great power, and this was the beginning of a great adventure. Then, they meet Dulcia, a warrior who protects that planet, and she was suspicious of the Rangers. Then, they tell her about Zordon and she takes them to the Ninjetti Temple, where she performs a ritual to give them the ninja power. Even though the movie had less time to create a story about the beginning of the ninja power, they did it better than the series. Because Power Rangers was created for a younger audience, the violence has to be more careful. However, the series has always been known for all the explosions that appear in the battles. This was something they did not include in the movie, and although there were other special effects, the explosions were not as big as in the series. Even so, in the movie they did something that in the series had never happened at that time, and that is that they showed Zordon outside the tube. In the series, Zordon is locked in that tube and exists outside of normal time. Basically, it's like he's in another dimension. In the movie, they did something different, since they make it look like Zordon is in the tube to stay alive, since if he comes out of that tube he starts to age rapidly until he dies. In the movie, we could see him out of that tube and see his body. This never happened in the series because when they broke the tube it was the end of Zordon and all the villains of the galaxy. One of the best changes they made in the movie was to give the Power Rangers a powerful villain, since in the series the villains are almost always dumb. The movie has a more serious feel to it, and that is why they were able to create a great villain, which almost defeated the Power Rangers. The series always had a style with a lot of comedy, and the villains were almost always silly. This is something that did not allow the series to give us a worthy villain to be a good rival for the Power Rangers. Ivan Ooze was a perfect villain who could crack jokes, but still be serious and not look like a goofball. He was a villain who had too much power to be an excellent rival for Zordon and the Power Rangers. He was so powerful that he defeated Rita and Lord Zed easily. Obviously, being a movie, they had to finish off Ivan, but if this monster had returned to the series, they would have had to face him with the Morphin Masters in order to defeat him. Something that we can see in the series and we didn't see in the movie are the weapons, and although in the movie we saw some, we didn't get to see all of them. Obviously, this is very difficult to achieve in a movie that only has a duration of 1 hour and 30 minutes, but it would have been nice to see more moments with the weapons. Another thing I should mention is the transformation, since in the movie they did it a little differently than in the series, and I think it had a more modern style. That style of transformation in the movie was so modern that they could still use it in any movie now and it would still look spectacular. There are some things that were special in the movie because they used the same things from the series, and this helped that movie to be very successful. We can start by mentioning the actors, because even though that movie is not part of the canon, they used the same actors that we saw in the series. Another very important thing they used from the series was the music. That iconic Mighty Morphin song was basically the same, and we all know that song is one of the best ever. We can even measure the importance of these two elements, and that is that obviously in the 2017 movie they couldn't use the same Mighty Morphin actors, and although they did use part of the song, it wasn't for long. The Power Rangers series was spectacular, but we must accept that the movie was like going up a level, and we have never been able to have a movie of that level again. If you like the Power Rangers movie, like this video, and subscribe for more Power Rangers movies.